Have you ever heard of the Infinity series of visual novels? Perhaps you've heard that Kotaro Uchikoshi was the writer on the series, who went on to make the famous Zero Escape games. Or maybe you've heard how the games are considered classics in the visual novel community, especially Ever 17. Today, I'm going to have a look, or we're going to have a look at the first game in the series, what I would consider the first Uchikoshi game. So stick around for the first entry into my new Infinity Games Retrospective series. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue. I'm sure there are some Zero Escape nerds watching this going, well actually. And I know it's not really Uchikoshi's first game. He was the writer for the standard romance visual novel known as Memories Off, and the 3D modeler for Pepsi Man. Unarguably his finest work. I would describe Never 7 as the first proper Uchikoshi game. During development, Uchikoshi was told by supervisors to keep the sci-fi elements light. The game needs to include cute girl characters in order to sell, they said. As a result of this, the pacing suffers badly. Rather than the romance and mystery intertwining seamlessly like in, well, Your Name, it feels more like your sister wants to watch Spice Girls when you're watching Doctor Who, and you have to fight over the TV remote. Honestly, to me it felt like I was enduring through the dull romance to get to the good stuff. When the plot does kick in, it has some unique concepts. Surprisingly, they haven't been reused in Uchikoshi's other games, well, at least as far as I'm aware. I must say, I did enjoy the nostalgic 90s anime look to the game. It just looked so good playing it on my CRT monitor. It almost justified the impracticality of such a large, space-hogging, power-sucking monitor. So the game's a bit of a mixed bag, but is it still worth playing despite its shortcomings? Well, let's find out. Now before I get into the story, I should explain how the game works. If you've ever played a visual novel, you're probably very familiar with the system. You make choices that determine your character's path. For example, if you choose to hang out with a particular girl during all the choices, the story will proceed down her path. Some paths are locked, requiring you to have completed some endings or meet other conditions to progress. It's kind of like a choose your own adventure book. I'm sure you've heard this all before, but for those 3 people out there who didn't, well, you're welcome. Well, let's get into it, eh? The game starts out in a dream, or nightmare. Our protagonist Makoto sees a girl die, with a vivid image of a bell slipping out of her dead hand. He states the date is Saturday, April 6th, 2019. Now, call me crazy, but I think this might be foreshadowing? Makoto awakens, shaken by how real his dream felt. He checks his watch, relieved to find the date is Monday, April 1st. Suddenly, a girl named Yuka bursts into the room with a sense of urgency. Yuka is your typical happy-go-lucky, naive anime girl. She too had a bad dream and seems to be a little stunned. After the awkward conversation, Makoto reminds himself he is on a school seminar camp. However, he's a bit hazy on the details of the camp. Luckily, the rich and famous heir to the powerful Ida financial group, Okuhiko, who happens to go to Makoto's school and has a Joda tier mullet, tells Makoto the purpose of the seminar camp is to tighten the bonds of the group. Not at all suspicious. Makoto also meets Haruka, a shy girl with long black hair who is an ace student at Makoto's school. Well, they actually all met the night before, but as they arrived to the camp late at night, interactions were brief. Makoto clearly doesn't like Okuhiko, likening the way he says, "hey," to that of a dictator looking down at his people. Alright, Makoto. Yuka tries to cook breakfast, but in a hilarious twist, she has the cooking skills of a one-finned penguin. Oh, my sides! Oh look, someone's left me a comment. I am deeply offended by your barbaric, disgusting language towards the one-finned penguin community, and I hope you go kill yourself. Oh, well, okay. Hey, hang on. Our party is ravenous, refusing to eat the quote unidentifiable object Yuka cooked for breakfast. But then a girl appears at the door with a pizza delivery, although she has the wrong address. Okihiko shows how much of a good bloke he is, lying about his name to receive the pizza. Mind you, none of his hungry companions seem to complain. From here, Okihiko and Haruka go to the beach, while Yuka and Makoto play a game of tennis. Makoto loses the game, and as punishment, Yuka says Makoto has to do one thing for her, but the twist is it can be anything. Foreshadowing. Upon meeting with the others, Haruka clumsily falls over. Twice. Makoto swears he sees the same thing happen 2 times in a row, telling himself it was too real to be deja vu. The gang stumble across a beach cafe. They find the energetic pizza delivery girl who introduces herself as Kurumi, a 17-year-old who looks and acts a lot younger. Her older sister Izumi is the temporary manager of the cafe. She comes across as a calm, mother-like figure. Introductions are cut short, as a clearly unhappy customer storms in. In fact, she is so mad, she even has a grumpy face on her fingertip. The pizza Okihiko stole earlier was meant for her. Hell breaks loose in the cafe. This is the last of our main characters, Saki, aka the tsundere. Honestly, she doesn't get much screen time. In the remakes, they didn't even bother redoing her vocal lines, as she just had so little of them. Yuka recognises Saki from high school, and Izumi offers to cook a large paella to make up for the pizza, and I don't really know why else, just being a good neighbour I suppose. Makoto suddenly makes a bizarre statement, saying that Izumi couldn't make paella as she had no rice. Lo and behold, Izumi didn't have any rice. Makoto once again is taken aback by his prediction, thinking there could be something weird going on. There would never be weird sciencey stuff in an Uchikoshi game, would there? After Makoto and Yuka get ingredients from the shopping district, and everyone has eaten Izumi's delicious paella, the group break into the neighbouring hotel's heated pool. Here Makoto has another premonition, warning the girls of an earthquake moments before it knocks them over. Makoto brings up his premonitions to the group, but is met mostly with doubt, especially from Okihiko. While walking home along the beach, Makoto finds the bell from his nightmare and throws it into the sea out of fear. The next day, everyone except Kurumi goes to the pool. Yuka gets shit-faced and has drunken tuna cravings. To please Yuka, everyone goes fishing, but suddenly, Yuka gets a bad feeling about fishing. Talk about moody. Yuka's bad feeling turns out to be justified, as Haruka gets into an argument with Saki, leading to Saki being hit by a wave and falling into the ocean. Izumi jumps in to save her. Saki, after nearly drowning, wakes up in Okihiko's arms. From this, she kind of develops a crush on the man. The day ends with Izumi telling a kind of ghost story of the island's cursed shrine, and in a very serious manner tells the group to avoid it. The next morning, Makoto takes Haruka fishing. Haruka the edgelord says she doesn't have a heart and can't understand the concept of empathy.
Wake me up, wake me.
Returning to the lodge, it becomes clear Okihiko is jealous Haruka is spending so much time with Makoto. Saki comes up in conversation. Okihiko, trying to express his feelings for Haruka, says he doesn't give a shit about Saki, just as she walks in. A tantrum follows. Saki smashes her basket and reveals that Haruka's a clone. Yep, there are clones in this universe. Apparently cloning has been legal since 2010, and that around 1 in 1,000 grade school kids are clones. Well, there you go. Oh, that's right. I forgot this was from the same guy who wrote the Zero Escape games. I thought it was a video game adaptation for Days of Our Lives or something. Now that I've brought it up, personally the 90s anime vibes were a highlight. Although the character models were a bit odd. For example, Yuka's huge thumb was extraordinarily distracting, and Kurumi having one eye bigger than the other made her kinda look like the teacher from Daria? More slice of life shenanigans occur. Our party play a game dubbed The Test of Courage at an old graveyard. The obligatory hot springs scene occurs, and the group have a barbecue on the beach, where Saki and Haruka get into another fight, throwing drinks at each other. Haruka brings sea roaches to eat and Yuka gets drunk. Ooh, did I say hot springs? Don't get too excited, fellas. This game is pretty tame and scores relatively low on my degenerate meter, meaning you could probably play this game around normies and not get judged too harshly. After the Barbie, it seems Kurumi has disappeared. Yuka and Makoto find her in the shrine Azumi warned them about. Yuka has another bad feeling before entering the shrine. Is she also having premonitions? When finding Kurumi in the creepy shrine, she says it feels nostalgic, as if she's been there before. In the shrine, they also find a bell, similar to the one in Makoto's dream, with a note next to it reading, "The spring rain," at the end of the cape, together with, "The echoing bell will free you from time." Guess my comparison to your name earlier wasn't too far off, eh? So the plot finally starts to kick into gear here, with Yuka saying she had the same dream as Makoto on the first. She also found the bell on the beach and threw it away, albeit the night after Makoto did. Yuka and Makoto theorise that the bells could send them back in time, and Yuka figures out that the shrine's name backwards reads Time Ruling Shrine. This explains the premonitions, as memories from a previous loop. As Makoto contemplates this in his bedroom, Haruka hands him a small paper bag, saying it's a gift from Kurumi, and he puts it in his pockets. The next morning, Makoto wakes up at 5 AM and finds out Yuka isn't in the lodge, finding a note that says she's gone to the shrine. Using her "do one thing for me" gift card she won at the tennis match, she tells Makoto not to follow her. A tropical cyclone has hit the island at this point. Oh, and by the way, it's the 6th of April, the date in Makoto's dream. Makoto goes to the shrine and finds Yuka standing on the edge of a cliff. Yuka pulls out the bell, saying she lied about throwing it away. Makoto then opens the paper bag Haruka gave him, and it also has a bell in it. Suddenly an earthquake hits, and they fall to their death. Makoto watches the bell fall from Yuka's dead hand, just like in the dream at the start of the game. The end. Nah, just joking. Makoto wakes up in the lodge. He checks his watch and finds it's April 1st again. Yuka bursts in like before. It seems they've retained their memories. Surely enough, everything happens just like before. They keep the time travel thing a secret from the others, for obvious reasons. Makoto and Yuka theorise that they might have been in what they call an infinity loop, where they've repeated the same 7 days an unknowable amount of times, or 6 days. Makoto tries to get a ferry back to the mainland, but due to the cyclone approaching, the ferry's closed. They ask a local fisherman for a ride, but he says the oceans during a cyclone would be suicide. Everything is basically the same. They find the bells on the beach and decide to keep them in case they screw up. But this time Saki and Makoto pair up in the test of courage. She tells him that he is similar to a boy Yuka had the hots for in high school. Yuka elaborates on this while under the stars in a romantic scene. Later, she tells you that there was a fire on a school camp. Yuka's crush rescued the whole class, but after saving Yuka, who refused to be saved first, died of exhaustion, with his last words being, "I love you." What a dick. If Yuka wasn't traumatized already, you've damn well ensured she is now. You should have said something like,
Fly, you fools!
Way less cliche too. I'll give his last words a 2 out of 10. The next day, which is the 6th, Yuka runs off to the shrine again, despite promising she wouldn't. After Makoto crushes his bell beneath his foot, they confess their feelings for each other. But then an earthquake throws them off the cliff. Yuka throws away her bell, and they embrace while falling to their death. Makoto awakens in the lodge again. He checks his watch, and it seems they have escaped the infinity loop. It says Sunday, April 7th. The final scene is Makoto and Yuka kissing as the sun rises, promising to be together forever. Well, that was pretty lame. Well, this is only the Yuka ending, but I agree, together forever, really? I found that despite Yuka's character being very cliche, she was still very likeable and had some charming, clever and funny moments. However, if we're talking about waifu potential, Yuka's drinking seems to be a little more than a hobby. Not only does she stash beer bottles and use alcohol to put herself to sleep, But at every opportunity, Yuka has a drink. At one point, she drinks over 20 beer cans in a sitting. Talk about a red flag. This could possibly be a way to deal with the trauma of having her first crush say he loved her moments before being incinerated by a fire. I'm just saying, she's got baggage. Proceed with caution. I definitely took some points off her rating in the Never 7 Waifu tier list that I'll have at the end of the review. Anyway, I guess I'll talk about the music because Yuka likes music. Yeah, that'll do for a segue. You may be familiar with composer Takeshi Eibo's other works, including Steins Gate, Steins Gate Zero, Mega Dimension Neptunia VII, and the other Infinity games. So, to say it's pretty similar to the other Infinity games isn't too off the mark, but it does have a little more influence from late 90s pop. It actually reminded me a little of Valhalla Cyberpunk Bartender Action soundtrack, with its cheesy electronic bass lines that sound straight out of a mid-90s Yamaha keyboard. The visuals are interesting. Personally, I like the look of the game. It's unique, but it just doesn't hold a candle to the visuals of modern visual novels, or even the other Infinity games. But it never really takes away from the experience, and there are a handful of really nice CGs. Anyway, after that little intermission, let's get into Haruka's route. On Haruka's route, you can place Haruka in Yuka's place for the small events like going shopping, the pool scene, the hot spring scene, etc. And the same can be said for most other routes as well. I will only talk about the big variations such as Yuka accidentally knocking out Okihiko with a tennis racket, meaning Makoto goes to the beach with Haruka. Here, she seems a lot more interested in the sea roaches than Makoto's company. You learn more about Haruka's feud with Saki. It's eventually revealed that Saki stole a bell from her. After falling asleep on the beach, Makoto and Haruka come across a stray dog on the way back to the lodge. Haruka says it's Saki's dog, and sure enough, Saki appears on the road. The dog runs onto the road and is about to be hit by a car, but Haruka jumps in front of it. The driver rushes Haruka to hospital. She's lost a lot of blood and needs a blood transfusion, but the island doesn't have supplies of her blood type. Makoto waits by her side. She regains consciousness, saying, quote, "It's alright, because I'm only someone's replacement," before dying. The bell falls out of her hand, just as it did in Makoto's dream. Makoto's consciousness also fades away, and Makoto wakes up, back at the lodge, once again on April 1st. However, this time only Makoto retained his memories. Everything pans out very similarly to last time, but Azumi does give us some juicy new gossip this time around. She tells us that Kurumi was kidnapped as a 1-month-old baby. The kidnapper left demands in the stroller. Azumi and Kurumi's parents are world-famous genetic engineers, and a year after the kidnapping, when it seemed they would never see their daughter again, they decided to clone Kurumi. Azumi was cruel to Kurumi's clone as a child, calling her a fake sister and often physically getting violent. She left a scar on the clone's forehead, and guess who else has a scar on their forehead? Haruka. And yes, Haruka is Kurumi's clone in Azumi's story. 3 years after Kurumi's abduction, the real Kurumi is found and Haruka is adopted by a young couple that work at Azumi's parents' lab. After some more romantic bollocks, something about Sleeping Beauty and the Little Mermaid, Haruka gets hit by the car again. However, Makoto realizes Kurumi and Haruka should have the same blood type, given that they are genetically identical. Maybe one of them dyes their hair or something. After searching all around the island on a push bike, Makoto finally finds Kurumi and he gets her to the clinic but faints of exhaustion. When Makoto wakens, he checks on Haruka, who is still unconscious, but wakes up when Makoto enters the room, saying, "Sleeping Beauty was wakened by a kiss." Azumi comes to see Haruka in the hospital, bearing the gift of a fruit basket. They have a sisterly heart-to-heart while Makoto's out of the room. We then get a scene where Makoto and Haruka are leaving the island on a bus. Kurumi and Azumi say you can come and see your 2 older sisters anytime as they depart. Aww. And that's it. Haruka seems to be considered by many to be best girl, and I can see why. It's often hard to tell if she's really as oblivious as she puts on, or if she's toying with Makoto. She's definitely the quirkiest character in the game, but the chemistry between Makoto and Haruka for me fell a little flat, and the romance scenes are just ugh. Her character has the most growth or development in the cast, so she's a red hot favourite in the waifu tier list. Next we have Saki. Her route is minimalist. Once again, most of the stuff that happened in the previous routes happens here, but with Saki inserted in some scenes. The Saki route really begins when Makoto decides to fix the basket she smashed in her little tanty. Well, Haruka and Azumi actually fixed it. I should note that Kurumi attached a bell to the basket when she fixed it. I'm just gonna say, the girls didn't do a very good job of fixing the basket. They say they stayed up all night repairing it, but the gaffer tape kinda says otherwise. When returning the basket, Saki goes full tsundere by being a total bitch to try and hide her emotions. When she finally seems somewhat thankful for Makoto's gesture, she hears the ring of the bell on the basket and totally flips out, throwing it out the window and asking if Haruka gave it to Makoto. Saki and Haruka get into a physical fight, and they also did in Haruka's route, I just didn't mention it, and the fighting at the barbecue where they throw drinks at each other also happens. Makoto decides to visit Saki's house in the middle of the night because he can't sleep? Well, a totally normal, not stalkery thing to do. He watches Saki from afar and sees a different side of her as she feeds and cares for a stray dog. Later that night, Saki knocks on Makoto's window, saying, quote, "It's not like I came here to see you," in case you had any doubt that she wasn't a tsundere. She then thanks Makoto for fixing the basket, and they lay under the stars in a romantic moment. The next day, Saki keeps lying, saying she doesn't care about the stray dog. So Makoto kicks the dog to prove a point, and promptly receives a slap to the face, as he deserves. Yuka warns Makoto that Saki is a total bitch, and so does everyone actually, but Yuka has evidence. Apparently in high school, Yuka beat Saki in an art competition. That night, the painting got destroyed, and a janitor saw Saki in the school. Ever since, Saki has been obsessed by the incident. Despite this, Makoto still thinks Saki is a nice person deep down. Personally, I think old Makoto might be a bit of a sadist. Saki says she has trouble trusting humans and prefers to talk to animals, saying people lie. Makoto brings up Yuka's painting, and Saki says she just wanted to look at the painting alone, and that she didn't destroy the painting, but only the school's stray cat and cherry blossom tree would listen. At this point, the romance hits like a new level of cheese. I'm talking like one of those Domino's pizzas where you order like double cheese, and you also get like the crust with the cheese inside of it, like next level stuff, you know what I mean? As Saki's explaining that she has trust issues with humans, Makoto says, "I need a fan." "You're wrong, Saki. There's one more person you can talk to honestly." Who? "He's right here." On the morning of the 6th, Makoto hears someone in the house. He gets up and sees a silhouette with a ponytail like Saki's getting into a taxi. Later that morning, everyone discovers their money is missing, and Okihiko brings up Saki breaking in the night before, just as Saki walks in. Everyone accuses the girl of stealing, and she runs off. Makoto follows. He finds her just hanging out off the railing at the lighthouse over a cliff, with the bell in her hand. After his negotiation attempt fails miserably, she lets go and Makoto whites out, saying like, "No," or something I can't remember. He wakes up in the lodge on April 1st, retaining his memories. Once again, everything happened as it did before, but this time we learn that the reason Haruka and Saki have been at odds is from a misunderstanding. They both had similar stories about losing and stealing a bell that don't quite match up, meaning that they were not the other person in the stories they remember. I could go into details, but it doesn't really matter. The girls actually get along after clearing this up. Like almost nothing else in the route is different. But we do get to learn why Saki broke into the house. Apparently her dog was hit by a car, and she wanted to tell Makoto. Now if you remember in the last route, Haruka jumped in front of that car, so she's not lying. She entered the house through Makoto's window while he went into the living room, so they missed each other. And she didn't want to stick around because her dog was, dying, so she quickly ran off to go to the hospital. She explains all this while hanging off the edge of the cliff. However, this time she walks away, probably saying, "I love you, Makoto," or something. I didn't note anything, so. After getting into contact with the police, it turns out the house was robbed just after Makoto left to chase Saki. So she was innocent after all. It ends with Saki moving in with Makoto. Yep, that's it. It's pretty short. Saki also seems to be pretty popular amongst the fans. Personally, I just don't see it. She's just way too much of a bitch. And yeah, I get that she has trouble showing emotion, but she's still a bitch. Maybe tsunderes just aren't my type. She's kinda cute, so she might even still be top tier waifu material. You never know. I guess all will be revealed in the waifu tier list. Can you tell I'm excited about the waifu tier list? And that's it for part 1 of my Never 7 retrospective. Be sure to watch the next part as we haven't even begun to get to the good stuff yet. I'll give you a hint. The game takes a turn in the philosophy of quantum mechanics direction. And of course it will have the waifu tier list! Most important part of the review, obviously. Make sure to hit the subscribe button to be informed when I finish that video. Or hit the bell icon, give me a like, you know how it works, all that jazz. I'll possibly do 1 or 2 videos between my Infinity series retrospectives, just to keep me sane, but I'll see how it goes. I'm some internet pleb. Thanks for watching, my fellow plebeians, and farewell.